Mazda is in a state of transition, where they're in the midst of becoming a luxury manufacturer to take on Lexus, Acura, and Infiniti in one way, shape, or form. But with those aspirations still being on the horizon, we have to focus on the here and now. And when you look at the Mazda lineup currently for 2022, whether it's the Mazda 3 or the CX-9, they're going to give you a premium experience. But best of all, you're not paying the premium price. What Mazda has been able to accomplish over the last 10 years or so is establish themselves as a mid-tier brand. They're not going to give you the quality or technology that we see from BMW and Audi, but they're not going to be cheap like Mitsubishi or Nissan. They're a nice blend where even for a CX-5 like we're in today, you get the nice comfort, you get the plush materials, you also have the leather seats. But best of all, you're not spending over $40,000 to get the creature comforts. So in this video, we're going to take a good long look at the slightly refreshed 2022 Mazda CX-5 to see how it compares to other vehicles in this segment, but also to see in a highly competitive compact crossover market if the CX-5 is still providing a great value in this price range. Now before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Ira Mazda in Westwood, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. Their link will be in the description below so you can check out their extensive Mazda inventory. Also, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. The Mazda CX-5 has always been unfairly overlooked in the compact crossover segment, as Toyota, Honda, and Ford annually dominate this market due to Americans preferring larger vehicles that can offer exceptional utility and practicality. Despite the size disadvantage versus rivals, the CX-5 has gradually climbed the ladder, becoming a respectable and desirable crossover that impresses buyers with an unopposed premium interior quality, a no-nonsense driving environment, and best of all, fair pricing. As Mazda plans to lead this particular consumer market for bigger and better opportunities, they're still showing signs of being competitive with the class leaders. And for 2022, they've made sure to make their presence known. Starting off with pricing, our model today is a Carbon Edition, coming in at just under $32,000, which sits in the middle of the trims for non-turbo CX-5s. While the facelift is substantial enough where you can differentiate between a 2022 and last year's model, most of the improvements are mechanical rather than cosmetic. Since Mazda is still using the same underpinnings for their compact crossover, exterior dimensions go untouched, and in fact remains as one of the smaller offerings in this market, affecting overall practicality and interior space compared to rivals. For those looking to take their CX-5s on terrain besides pavement, you'll have about 7.5 inches of ground clearance, which should be enough for extremely light off-roading or to take on unplowed streets. Knowing that Mazda is moving in a new direction, the CX-5 gives us a tiny glimpse of where the design language is going for this brand in the future, as the front fascia for the 2022 model is an appetizer for what's to come with the all-new CX-50. Exclusive for the Carbon Edition is the highly coveted polymetal gray metallic paint color that contrasts nicely with the black accents that outline the grille and seamlessly flow into the refreshed LED headlights. You're also going to notice that the bumper is more angular, where the bylines are pronounced and the CX-5 appears to be classier and upscale than in the past. Not only were the fog lights removed, but the lower air vent has also been reshaped to look less tacky and more streamlined. While you can rightfully state that the facelift isn't too significant, somehow Mazda was able to make enough changes where this crossover now has a striking road presence. Moving over to the side profile, this CX-5 is sitting on 19-inch alloy wheels with black metallic finish. If they look familiar, that's because they're the same from last year, whereas other trims, such as the Premium and Premium Plus, get whole new wheel designs. Mazda claims that for 2022, they tweaked the suspension to provide optimal comfort, and that's something we'll discuss during the test drive. With the Carbon Edition, you have gloss black side mirrors with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Then coming around to the back, the most noticeable cosmetic upgrade that will draw your attention is the full LED taillights, including the indicators to finally give the CX-5 a modern appearance. Holistically speaking, the rear fascia didn't receive the same refresh that we saw up front, at least for the Carbon Edition, as turbo models get gloss black accents to replace the plastic cladding, and the turbo signature will have a full paint finish to symbolize Mazda's commitment to becoming a luxury brand. Under the hood, the CX-5 is powered by the same 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine that puts out 187 horsepower and 186 pound-feet of torque. And for buyers who have a strong disliking for CVTs, it will be paired with a 6-speed automatic transmission. With the turbo, performance numbers increase to 256 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque, which will likely be the choice for those who want to have a bit more fun behind the wheel. Just like with the suspension, Mazda made some slight tweaks to the 6-speed automatic, improving gear shifts and responsiveness when accelerating. Being more competitive with rivals, all-wheel drive is now standard for all trims in the US, as it was a $1,400 option last year. For fuel economy, you're looking at right around 24 miles per gallon in the city, and 30 miles per gallon on the highway. Stepping inside, the optional heated red leather seats honestly completes the best spec CX-5 you can configure. But best of all, both the driver and passenger will have power adjustability, with the driver's side being 2-position memory for added convenience. For a crossover priced in the low $30,000 range, this is uncommon. And while we're not surprised that Mazda went the extra mile by giving occupants premium comfort, it's the thought that most competitors aren't doing the same that really leaves a lasting impression on what the CX-5 is offering consumers on a budget. Unlike on the higher trims, the Carbon Edition will have analog gauges, with a digital display on the far right to showcase relevant information, such as fuel efficiency. And you can change what you see by using the button mounted on the leather-wrapped steering wheel. Then moving over to the infotainment system, you still won't have a touchscreen, and instead, a rotary dial, touchpad, and quick access buttons will allow you to navigate through different menus. Resolution and quality is good. However, there is a bit of a learning curve, especially when using Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as it doesn't pair well with this head unit, mostly because these apps weren't designed to function without a touchscreen. As always, you'll have a rear backup camera, but for the turbo signature, a 360-degree view will help aid in parking the CX-5. As we continue on, below you'll find the buttons and dials for the dual-zone climate control, 3-level heated seats, and front and rear defrosters. Compared to other crossovers in this market, Mazda keeps everything simple, with a minimalistic layout that is enhanced by soft-touch materials. Eye candy is kept to a minimum, but plushness is prioritized to elevate your driving experience. For the center console, there will be a toggle for the drive mode selector, where you can switch between normal and sport. And for those wondering, throttle response and steering input are mostly left unaffected when in sport mode. For the center storage compartment, you'll have enough room for smaller items, and you'll also find 2 USB inputs. And rounding out the front seating area, above will be a power moonroof to let in some natural light to the interior. Now for passengers in the back, we're going to start off on the passenger side, and this seat is adjusted for the back. It's also somewhat on a recline, and I have just enough room where I'm not feeling cramped or claustrophobic. Now, you've probably noticed with CX-5 reviews that there really isn't a general consensus on how comfortable you really are going to be back here, because some people are going to say that the CX-5 is more compact, that it's too tight, that it's not as big as other vehicles in this market, which I would agree, because the CX-5 is one of the smaller crossovers in this segment. But then you also have those people that will say that they're more than comfortable, they have enough legroom and enough headroom. So I think it really just comes down to what your size is. For average size adults and people over the height of, I'd say 5'9" or 5'10", that's where they're not going to feel as comfortable as smaller people. So I think for smaller families, this will work. But also, if you are cross-shopping this with a Mazda CX-30, the CX-30 is more like a lifted hatchback. And you're going to feel that when you do sit in the second row. Whereas the CX-5 is more like a traditional crossover. And you are going to notice that the CX-5 is more accommodating and more family-friendly. And I would say the CX-5 is certainly the way to go when you are comparing both vehicles. Now, moving on to the center seat, you will have some decent placements for your feet, but the center hump is pretty aggressive. However, that is all a moot point because the CX-5 is thinner, and we see this across the board for compact crossovers. And with this vehicle being smaller, you're just not going to be able to fit a third person back here, I don't believe. If you do have a bigger family, take a look at the CX-9, but like we see for a lot of competitors in this market, I just don't think you'll be able to have a third person back here comfortably, and I think everyone will be complaining about the lack of shoulder room and possibly the lack of legroom as well. And then on the driver's side, the seat is adjusted to someone of my height, around 5'5", and I have a good amount of legroom to work with here. So I do believe that the CX-5 is perfect for smaller people and also smaller families, but keep in mind that if you do have taller passengers in the back on a daily basis, you might want to look at the CX-9. Also back here, you will have two rear air vents. Now, we do not have heated rear seats on this model. And rounding out the rear seating area, you do get a center armrest with two cup holders and also a small compartment with two USB inputs. Now, coming around to the back, you are going to receive a power liftgate on the Carbon Edition. And inside, you're going to have right around 31 cubic feet of room to work with behind the second row seats. Now, this is not class leading by any means. In fact, it will get outclassed by the CR-V, Toyota RAV4, and Volkswagen Tiguan, but is pretty competitive with the Ford Escape, Nissan Rogue, and Subaru Forester. Now, if you just plan on using this vehicle for daily tasks such as going to the grocery store or buying smaller items and loading it up in this vehicle, you're going to be more than happy with this crossover because it does have a good amount of room to work with. But if you are going on a road trip, I think you can easily fit 4 to 5 bags of luggage back here, which is really great to see for a compact crossover. Then with the second row seats full, you're looking at right around 60 cubic feet of room, which again is not the most practical in this market, but I do think it's more than adequate for most Americans. Then on either side of the rear cargo area, you will have quick release tabs to conveniently lower the second row seats, so you're spending less time having to manually lower the second row seats and more time loading up this vehicle with your equipment or maybe your luggage if you are going on that road trip. Also on either side of the rear cargo area are smaller cubbies for maybe some water bottles, car detail equipment, or possibly a first aid kit. But the big selling point for the CX-5 is the fact that it does have a spare tire. And I read the comments all the time in my videos, and I see people say, wait a minute, it doesn't have a spare tire? That's it, I'm not buying this vehicle. Well, the CX-5 has you covered. So if you do encounter a flat on your journeys or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. And then once you're done, just press the button and the liftgate will close automatically. Alright, so we are now behind the wheel of the CX-5 Carbon Edition. Now, Mazda says that they have made some slight tweaks to the 2022 model year. One to the suspension to make it a bit more comfortable and also to lower the road noise. So you can start seeing that they're moving in the luxury direction here. And then two, they did tweak the 6-speed automatic. So those are two things that I'm going to be focused on during this test drive. Now, one thing I really love about the CX-5 and really Mazda in general is that they have made minimalism and simplistic very appealing, because when you check out the interior, when you're in this driving environment, it feels very premium and upscale, even for a trim that's more like a mid-tier. So the dashboard, really nice material, soft touch, but also I love these leather seats as well. They're really comfortable. They're not really aggressive, but they do keep you in place. They do add that support that you're looking for on a longer drive. One thing that I'm noticing immediately is that there has been a slight alteration to the ride quality of the CX-5. And I am noticing a difference in how this vehicle is handling the bumps compared to last year. Last year I said that the suspension was a bit rigid and a bit stiff, and for 2022 it feels a bit softer. They have improved this crossover in many ways where it does feel a bit more higher quality, it feels a bit more upscale, and this really does remind me of other crossovers in this particular price range and segment. So we're starting to see Mazda move in this whole new direction. I think this is a great taste and a nice glimpse of that. Now, of course, with the 6-speed automatic, I think right then and there, what you have is a vehicle that's far and away better than some of the Japanese competitors that have CVTs. I gotta be honest, CVTs are not my favorite, and they really do ruin the whole driving experience, whereas with this being a traditional automatic, it's making my experience behind the wheel a lot better. One thing I really enjoy about Mazda products as well is that the steering is nicely weighted. It has a nice weight to it, and even though you do feel the body roll in the corners, there is some engagement there. There is some feedback, and also it creates some confidence as you are on some winding back roads. Now, obviously, I'm doing about 30 miles an hour here, so if maybe I got up to 40, 45, I start feeling that body roll a lot more. But this is not meant to be a canyon carver or a vehicle you're gonna be driving very spiritedly on your weekday commutes. Another key improvement for 2022 that Mazda really focused on was the road noise, and what I'm noticing is a nice quiet cabin in here. This is a lot better than the 2021 model that I had reviewed around this time last year. If you are in the market for a compact crossover, depending on what your preferences are, what you prioritize in your next vehicle, and really what you demand in a vehicle in this particular segment, the Mazda CX-5 is going to have its pros and cons. It's going to be smaller than its closest rivals, and with that, it's not going to be as practical. However, the materials that they use for the interior, the lack of road noise, the performance, the 6-speed automatic transmission really makes this crossover, in my mind, on par with the Hyundais and Kias of the world. The manufacturers that are really taking the next step in their histories, where they're becoming more luxurious, they're really starting to separate themselves from the Mitsubishis and the Nissans, and they're starting to prioritize the comfort and really providing a lot of value. And that's where Mazda has been for the last 5 to 8 years, especially when you look at their quality, the leather materials, the soft touch padding on the dashboards. That is such a standout that we don't see from a lot of brands in this particular price range, and that's where Mazda, in my opinion, has done an amazing job. Now, on the highway, I'm not really noticing a heck of a lot of road noise, which I did notice last year. So again, they're really starting to make their suspensions a bit softer, and they're really trying to give you a nice driving environment, and they've certainly done that for the 2022 model. Everything that they've tweaked, I'm noticing. And usually for a lot of manufacturers that are still using the same platforms, they'll talk about how they made some minor adjustments, and you're sitting there wondering, really? Did they actually make any difference? Is it any different than last year? But with the CX-5, I am noticing a significant improvement, or at least a noticeable improvement, where the 6-speed automatic is shifting a lot better in sport mode, which I was complaining about last year. And then also with the suspension, it is softer, it's not as stiff and rigid, and again, that leads to their direction of being more luxurious and going more upscale, and I think they're achieving that, especially with a vehicle that's still built on the same platform. This is really great to see. So what is the final verdict for the test drive portion of the 2022 Mazda CX-5 Carbon Edition? Well, if you are looking to save money, you don't really want to spend $40,000 on a vehicle because, you know, you love to have the creature comforts, you want to have the leather seats, you want to have an upscale interior, but you're not willing to pay the price for that, then the CX-5, I think, is a great option. And really, for 2022, they've made this vehicle even more appealing because they fixed all the issues that the prior model year had. The suspension wasn't the softest, it wasn't the most comfortable or family friendly. Then also, when it comes to the road noise, it really wasn't that great. And they fixed that. And then also with the 6-speed automatic transmission. Gotta be honest, I'd rather have the turbo with the 6-speed. But for 2022, they have fixed it where, yeah, it does work. It does feel good driving around town, and even when you put it in sport mode, the 6-speed doesn't hold the gears long. It's not annoying. It doesn't feel like the sport mode is fake. And that's what I love about what Mazda has done this year. Because a lot of competitors will give you a sport mode and it just doesn't feel authentic. It just really doesn't feel that great at all. But Mazda, even with the non-turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, it is engaging. It is fun to drive. You also have a nice heavy weighted steering, which I think is a lot better than the Japanese and American competitors. So I just think that for around $33,000 to $35,000, the Carbon Edition really is giving you quite a lot. I mean, leather seats at this price range is somewhat unheard of. You might be getting synthetic leather or you might be getting cloth at this price point, depending on what you're looking at. So the fact that you actually have leather, you have heated seats, power adjustable on both sides, that's just great to see. I really love what Mazda has done, and I think it's definitely worth taking a look at if you are looking at buying a compact crossover. So in closing, the 2022 model year is more than a minor facelift. Even though what you interact with on a daily basis and what you see hasn't changed at all for the interior, it's what you can't see that has experienced some major improvements, like the 6-speed automatic transmission, the ride quality, and the suspension. For me, that's more than enough. But then for the exterior, they've reshaped the headlights and the taillights to give this crossover a more upscale vibe, but also to give us an indication of where the design language will be heading in the next few years. Personally, I think the Mazda CX-5 still has a place in this market, even though you could argue that it is showing its age, that we do need more technology, and maybe we do need a facelift for the interior as well. But the fact that you have the interior quality with the leather seats for a Carbon Edition that's not a top trim at all. Also, the nice soft touch materials on the dashboard and the armrest. This is a great place to be. It's a nice crossover. When you look at what you're paying for at around $33,000 to $35,000, I still think the CX-5 is a great value, but also more importantly, it's giving you that taste of premium quality, a taste of luxury without paying over $40,000 or $45,000 to receive all the bells and whistles and that comfort. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.